Serenity Valley Stories invites you into the shadows. Like and subscribe for more tales that will haunt your nights. And now our feature presentation. The Ogua of the River. The river had always held a certain allure for me. Its vastness, the quiet murmur of the water against the boat, the way the mist curled over the surface in the early morning, all of it drew me in like a moth to a flame. So when Aaron, my old friend and an experienced fisherman, invited me to join him for a weekend on the Monongahela River, I jumped at the chance. This part of the river has a history, Aaron had said as we prepared to launch the boat from the bank. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a weathered face, his skin bronzed from years under the sun. You ever heard of the Ogua? I shook my head, adjusting my grip on the fishing rod. Can't say I have. Some kind of fish? Aaron chuckled, a sound that rumbled deep in his chest. Not exactly. It's more of a local legend. The old-timers say it's a creature that lives in these waters, half turtle, half beast. They say it's as big as a cow, with a tail like a serpent. It's got jaws that can crush a man's bones. I laughed, thinking he was trying to spook me. Yeah, right. And I suppose it drags people down to the bottom, too? Aaron's smile faded, and he looked at me with a seriousness that sent a shiver down my spine. Some say it does. Best to keep your eyes open out here. I dismissed his warning with a shrug, but the weight of his words lingered as we set off down the river. The water was calm, and the early morning sun cast a golden hue over the landscape. It was beautiful, serene, and I quickly fell into the rhythm of casting my line, letting the river's gentle flow carry my worries away. As the day wore on, we drifted farther downstream, the dense forest closing in around us. The air grew heavy with humidity, and the sounds of the forest became muffled, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Aaron guided the boat into a narrow stretch of the river, where the banks rose steeply on either side, cloaked in shadow. This is where the big ones like to hide, he said, his voice low. They come up from the depths to feed. I nodded, trying to ignore the unease that was creeping into my gut. We cast our lines and waited, the silence between us growing as the light began to fade. I could feel the weight of the surrounding forest, the oppressive stillness broken only by the occasional splash of a fish or the call of a distant bird. Then, just as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, it happened. The boat shuddered violently, nearly tipping us into the water. I grabbed the sides, my heart pounding in my chest. What the hell was that? I shouted. Aaron's face had gone pale, his eyes wide with fear. Pull in your line, he said urgently. Now. I fumbled with the reel, my hands trembling as I yanked the line from the water. The boat rocked again, harder this time, and I caught a glimpse of something massive moving beneath the surface. It was dark, almost black, with a sheen that reminded me of wet stone. My breath caught in my throat as I realized just how large it was, easily as long as our boat, if not longer. Aaron, what is that? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. It's the Ogua, he said, his voice trembling. We need to get out of here. Now. But it was too late. The creature struck the boat again, and this time it didn't stop. The hull splintered with a deafening crack, and suddenly we were in the water, the icy cold shocking me into action. I thrashed wildly, struggling to keep my head above the surface as the boat was pulled under. Swim! Aaron shouted. To the island. I followed his gaze and saw a small patch of land jutting out of the water a short distance away. It was little more than a cluster of rocks and trees, but it was our only hope. I kicked my legs furiously, fighting against the current as I made my way toward it. The water churned around us, and I felt something brush against my leg, a thick, scaly tail that sent a jolt of terror through me. I pushed harder, every stroke fueled by the primal fear of what lurked beneath. We reached the island just as darkness fell, collapsing onto the rocks in a heap. I was gasping for air, my muscles burning with exhaustion, but I forced myself to sit up, to check that Aaron was still with me. He was lying beside me, chest heaving as he stared back at the river. The boat was gone, swallowed whole by the black water, and with it, everything we had. Our fishing gear, our food, even our flashlights, all of it was gone. "We're stranded," I said, my voice trembling. "What do we do now?" Aaron didn't answer immediately. He was still staring at the river, his face a mask of fear and determination. "We survive," he finally said. "We keep our heads down, stay quiet, and hope that thing doesn't come back." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. The island was small, barely large enough for the two of us to sit side by side without being in the water. The trees offered some cover, but they also cast long, twisted shadows that made the darkness seem even more impenetrable. We huddled together, our backs to the largest tree, and waited. The night was pitch black, the moon obscured by thick clouds, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the occasional splash from the river. Every noise made me jump, my heart racing as I imagined the Ogua lurking just out of sight, waiting to strike. Hours passed, though it felt like days. The cold seeped into my bones, and I could feel the dampness of the island clinging to my skin. My stomach growled, but I knew there was nothing to eat, nothing but the fear that gnawed at my insides. I tried to stay awake, but exhaustion was pulling at me, my eyelids growing heavy. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard it, a low, guttural growl that rumbled through the air, vibrating through the rocks beneath us. "Aaron," I whispered, shaking him awake. "Did you hear that?" He nodded, his eyes wide with terror. "It's here." We both froze, listening as the growl grew louder, closer. The Ogua was circling the island, its massive body moving through the water with a deadly grace. I could hear the swish of its tail, the scrape of its claws against the rocks. It was hunting us, waiting for the right moment to strike. I clutched the pocket knife I had managed to keep, though I knew it would be useless against something so large, so ancient. My mind raced, searching for a way out, but there was nowhere to go, no escape from the island, no way to fight back. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the noise stopped. The growling faded, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow even more terrifying. We waited, barely daring to breathe, as the minutes ticked by. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Aaron spoke. "We need to get off this island. We can't stay here another night." I nodded, knowing he was right. We couldn't survive another encounter with the Ogua. We had to take our chances and swim for the shore, even if it meant facing the creature in the open water. We waited until the light was strong enough to see by, then crept to the edge of the island. The river was calm, the surface smooth and unbroken, but I knew better than to trust it. "Stay close," Aaron said, his voice low and steady. "Don't stop swimming, no matter what." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest as we slipped into the water. It was colder than before, the chill cutting through me like a knife, but I pushed forward, every stroke bringing us closer to the distant shore. For a while, it seemed like we might make it. The shore was getting closer, the trees on the bank growing larger with each passing moment. But then, just as I allowed myself a flicker of hope, I felt it again, a shift in the water, a ripple that didn't belong. The Ogua was back. I didn't dare look, didn't dare slow down, but I could feel it behind me, a dark presence that sent waves of terror crashing over me. My muscles screamed in protest, my lungs burning with the effort, but I forced myself to keep going, to push through the fear and the pain. The shore was so close now, just a few more strokes, but I could feel the water pulling at me, the current dragging me back. I kicked harder, my limbs flailing as I fought against the force that was trying to pull me under. And then, with one final burst of energy, I was there. My feet hit the muddy bank, and I scrambled up, collapsing onto the ground as the adrenaline coursed through me. Aaron was right behind me, gasping for air as he hauled himself onto the shore. We lay there for a long moment, too exhausted to move, too shocked to speak. When I finally found the strength to sit up, I looked back at the river. The water was calm again, as if nothing had happened, as if the Ogua had never existed. But I knew better. I had seen it, felt it, and I would never forget it. "We made it," Aaron said, his voice hoarse. I nodded, unable to find the words to express the sheer relief, the overwhelming gratitude for being alive. But even as we stood and began the long trek back to civilization, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched, that the Ogua was out there, lurking in the depths, waiting for its next victim. And I knew one thing for certain: I would never return to that river again. Thank you for watching Serenity Valley Stories. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another scary tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below.